Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Today we decided to conduct the seminar of the type from which we actually were starting when we just launched, when our lab was launched. So in early 2018, 2015. Yeah, we were reading a lot of articles and then we were discussing them, and it looks like this is also a nice format. And now in the beginning of the year, we are just like playing with different formats of the seminars, and we thought that it can be a nice idea to discuss an article. And we actually saw one article which looked quite interesting for us, and this is the article entitled "Social Research in Times of Big Data: The Challenges of New Data Worlds and the Need for Sociology of Social Research." So this is quite wide like topic, and at the same time we are the lab which is working with network data. However, this big data is very much associated with networks, and also we are social scientists, and there are a lot of sociologists in our lab. So that's why we thought that it can be of an interest of many people in the lab and also outside the lab, and that's why I'm really happy to see a lot of people who came, and I mean, quite some people who came, but quite a lot of them are from outside the lab. So it's nice that this topic attracted your attention, and we are recording this seminar. So hopefully those people who will miss it because of some of their duties will be able later to see this. And so the plan for this seminar is to go through the main ideas of this article, which I'm going to show on the presentation. So I read the article, and I actually made something like conspect, so something like a short version of it. And I'm going to actually tell about this, and then we can either discuss some questions on the way, or I can finish and then we will come back to these issues. And also but before this, I wanted to ask if you managed to at least to go through this article, and probably something already attracted your attention. So I heard that Aruna and Tamara managed to read this article. And what about others? Just some volunteers. It's not necessary for, I mean, I'm not insisting that everyone will answer, but if you have something to say, just say. Okay. Okay. Then if this plan is okay for you, I will start sharing my screen, and but I really want to highlight that I would need your support. And if you have something to add during the presentation, so please feel free to interrupt me and to say something. It would be nice. So it would be great to have some kind of discussion out of it. Okay, so okay. Okay, so I already told what is the topic of this article, and you already also saw it in the abstract of our seminar. So yeah, this is the article written by the authors Rainer Diaz-Bon, Kenneth Horvath, and Valeska Kapel. So I'm sorry, I didn't pronounce it correct. And when I was like some time ago, I was looking at some Telegram account which is about theoretical sociology, and I just saw the surname of this Rainer Diaz-Bon, And yes, thank you very much for the answer. I didn't see it. So I just noticed that this is the same author, which Aruna Kim, who is my colleague, and who is working on the mixed methods in network approach, in networks. She was citing this person in her recent article, which she sent to Sociology for M, 4M. And so that's why I somehow, it somehow attracted my attention. And then I read the art and the abstract, and it looked like it's something really that can be interesting for us. So this is the paper which was published in Historical Social Research in 2020. So it's already 1 year old, but still quite new article. And yeah, these are the authors. I could find only the pictures of the Rainer Dijsbon and Valeska Kapel. So unfortunately, I didn't find a picture of Kenneth Horvath, and we cannot see his face, but so these are the authors. And
Dasha, excuse me, I think I see only the first slide at the screen.
Oh, okay. And what about others?
I see only the first one.
Same. Okay, I'll just stop it, and I'll finish it again. What about now? If I turn the slides?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, wait, yeah. Okay, so these are the pictures which I was talking about, and actually I should say, unfortunately, these are the only pictures that you would see in this presentation further. I mean, this is only text, and I didn't have quite a lot of time to make a nice presentation, so I'm really sorry. I will have to have a lot of text on my slides, and yeah, so that's it. This would be like we are reading the article, something a little bit like this. So these authors are from the Department of Sociology and University of Lucerne, Switzerland, and it looks like they have a lot of articles on the topic around this big data and social theory. So if you are interested in something in this topic, so you can definitely go to the topic. Okay. Thank you for your support. Okay, so then I'm going further. So the outline of the article. The article consists of 6 parts, and the first one is introduction, as any regular article. Then the authors discuss conventions, coordination, and context, a conceptual note on the sociology of social research. So this is something like the theoretical frame that they use to talk about these changes that big data makes for social science.
Sorry, I think the slides are not moving again.
And what about if I'm doing like this? So can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, so probably then I'm not going to make share screen. I mean, this slideshow. So then I will just use regular slides.
Okay, great.
Okay, so then they try to answer to 3 questions about big data, and they are like, what are the qualities of the big data? So what is new in this kind of data? What makes this kind of data so much different from previous types of data, and why we should really care about it? And then the question is, like what is at stake, so why we should care about new data worlds, so why it is important for us, what kind of questions does it have, and does it imply for the world. And then what kind of challenges does social research actually face because of this kind of data? So then they just conclude and make some contours and starting points for sociology of social research, as they call it, in times of big data. So this is like this, and now I'm going just to go through each part and just to say kind of main things that I grasped from there. And if you agree or disagree, or you have some like ideas about it or some questions, so then you are free to ask your questions. So talking about the introduction, big data, is it, so they start with the question like, is it at all a new phenomena or not new phenomena? Because if we say that big data is made of huge data sets, then it's not something which is exclusively used just in previous years, but this is something that social sciences used for centuries, and exploratory data analysis also started like from 1950s. And also, if you say about social physics, like many physicists now are trying to discuss and to answer some, to solve some questions from social sciences. And so if we say about social physicists, so then we should go back to 19th century to like Auguste Comte. And so this is from this perspective, it looks like this is not something really new. If we think about big data from different kind of perspective, so then this phenomenon at all is showing a fundamental shift in the social research landscape. And this shift cannot be fully grasped from the standpoint of established methodological frameworks, because these are the frameworks that are being challenged by this big data in the first place. Having this, as I understand it, so having this optic, as we get used to have in social sciences, it doesn't help us to understand what is this phenomena. So that's why the whole phenomena is challenging us. And as the authors say, that the key claim of this paper is that in order to grasp what is at stake, we need to discuss the methodological questions surrounding big data in relation to the precise historical and situational contexts in which they arise. And it's not only about new kinds of data and data analysis, because partly it is something that has already existed for some time, but this is a whole set of transformations involving, among others, epistemic values and orientations, institutions and forms of quantifications, data and problem ownership, or the relations between research and the common good. So this is really a very broad perspective, and it's not only about data and how you analyze it. And they say that it is critical that the social sciences recognize and face the resulting challenges. Social sciences have already lost part of their supremacy and of analyzing and interpreting the social world. So we have witnessed it as the people who are working with network analysis. So all of us know that at some part, for example, people from physics came to started doing network analysis, and they were quite successful, and also in discussing some social problems and trying to explain some social phenomenon. It was something like they came to do something that social sciences didn't. So that's why the authors are saying that there are some examples like this. And yes, we know about it. And they claim that the challenges of big data are most pronounced vis-a-vis the canonical quantitative methodologies that have dominated social sciences for decades. They question established statistical techniques as well as key epistemic values and orientations underpinning these approaches. And overcoming this challenge will require taking alternative logics and techniques of doing social research seriously. So, as I said, it's not only about data and analysis, but this is something about methodology and approaches and techniques and epistemic values. And as you noticed, as you read, they use their field of health as an example, because this is the field where there are a lot of gadgets and a lot of tools which help to evaluate some different measures. And this is quite, how to say, this is the field which brings a lot of big data, and there are a lot of questions which arise with this kind of data. Going to the first subsection, going to the first part, which is about the theory, conceptual note on the sociology of social research. This is about conventions, coordination, and context. We should say that, so in this part, the authors describe their theoretical perspective, their optic through which they are going to look at this sociology of social research, which they would like to propose. And they are going to move towards the sociology of social research in order to fully grasp the foundations and implications of the current critical moment in the development of empirical social research and its methodologies. And the objective is to systematically link the methodological question of what makes good data to a political economy of datification, as they call it, as well as to an analysis of the pragmatics of social science knowledge production. And this is the discussion this is the approach which allows bridging the discussion of methodological principles with analysis of dominant institutional and cognitive forms, epistemic values and orientations, form of assessing and justifying data quality, and the political and economic links through which social research is related to public concerns and the common good. So this is really a very wide perspective, as I said before. And this perspective that they use is called economics of convention, and EC in short form. And as they say, it was developed in the analysis of social and methodological usages of classifications, quantifications, and statistics. So this is exactly exactly relevant for the topic of our discussion. And this economics of convention has an important concept of conventions. And conventions are logics of coordination that actors rely on when they have to interpret, evaluate others' actions, objects, or processes in situations. They say that in situations of critique or in need of justification, actors can refer to conventions as deeper principles in order to relate to worth or greatness or common good. So this is some, as I understand it, this is the set of rules, the set of principles that actor is taken into account in any sphere of his or her life. And now as we are talking about research, so this is something that should exist in the field of research, and definitely exist. We will come to this a little bit later. And one of important concept is the concept of quantification. This is the process of establishing definitions, standards, procedures for numerical classification and measurement. And it requires negotiation, coordination, and critique. And also it legitimates the counting or measuring of some phenomenon in a specific way. And also the authors have an example of in the field of health studies, in the field of health. So there is a movement or a kind of social group which is called like Quantify Yourself or something like this. I just don't remember correctly. So the people who are trying to kind of quantify their life as much as possible, just to interpret everything with their numbers. So this is this process of quantification which takes place in the society in general, but also in some groups in really such a strong form. And they say that to see measurement and quantification this way means to insist on coherent and adequate conventions of measurement, so that the result is data interpretable for coordinating actors and suitable for collective action, always with the overreaching objective or pursuing a common good. So now we have this term which we already discussed in the previous slide, the convention. So there should be, to make this quantification, there should be some kind of rules how it should be done. And they say that the sociology, which is inspired by economy of conventions, aims to make social research more realistic by empirically investigating the actual forms of doing social research that have emerged and become accepted as feasible and legitimate ways of solving the uncertainties and complexities of knowledge production. And another term which is used is datification. This is the institutionalized processes by which social practices and processes are transformed into and presented as data, with the aim of using this data for specific purposes and in specific ways. And it opens, so it allows to like open up to questions how datification relates to political and economic dynamics, and we can investigate the political economy of data. And also we can focus on our attention on the institution, practices, and processes which are involved in datification, on the inner workings and epistemology of data. So this brings epistemic values and orientations which allow actors involved in knowledge production to coordinate, to reflect, and to evaluate. I hope you're not lost. And here we come to important concepts which are used again. These are statistical chain, data infrastructures, and data worlds. And actually this statistical chain concept is quite interesting, and it links different involved actors and situation. So this is a kind of network which is like directed, which has one direction. So this allows for an understanding of how datification and quantification can lead to invalid data when the involved actors switch conventions along the chain. So here I would probably go one step back and say that, so we discussed that there are some conventions between actors to work properly in any field. And this notion of statistical chain, it actually, I didn't say about this. So it involves actors who are involved into the, for example, measuring of some, let's say, phenomena. And it includes not only the scientist who is working, but also the whole chain, the whole set of programmers and people who are downloaded the data, people who are creating the data, who are working with databases. So this is the huge chain from basically from the data to the researcher. And then in this chain, if there are some problems in switch of conventions between the actors in this chain, so then finally we can come with the invalid data. And I think this is a quite interesting notion, and quite nice to have it in mind to when we're discussing some processes of data analysis. But these are my thoughts, and I would leave them till the end. And now I'm just trying to recall what was written in the article. So talking about, again, statistical chain and conventions, it should be said that they are not only relevant as means of ensuring democratic control and public accountability, but also as basis for ensuring methodological coherence. So this is really important for methodology. Then we have the concept of data infrastructures, and this key interface between political and economic orders and everyday epistemic practices. Conventionalized and institutionalized resources that guide and structure the datification of social phenomena. And then finally, they use the word, the concept of data worlds, and these are specific assembles and interplays of players, institutions, and practices. So all these chains and infrastructures are finally come up with these data worlds. And talking about, so yeah, this was the first part. This is the theoretical frame with which the authors come up to the topic of big data. And now they, and in the next part, they are discussing what makes the new quality of big data. So what exactly, what is making big data something new, some new phenomena. So they say that big data usually is described with multiple V definition. So this has a huge volume, variety, and velocity. But they say that to consider only aspects of mass and format would mean to overlook big data's social, scientific, economic, and political character, and its already effective capacity to transform societies. So we all, I think, get used to think about big data just as the huge arrays of data. And this can be unstructured, they can be not clean, and you have to make some pre-processing or something like this. But the authors attract our attention to the fact that it really has larger impact on the social life and scientific and economic and political life. And in this part, they try to explain what exactly big data brings. And they say that big data should not merely be considered of a numerical representation of individual behavior, such as consumer behavior, but instead social reality itself needs to be seen as being transformed into digital processes. So as I say, as they also make some examples that there are a lot of digitalization in our life now, and so the whole life should be understood as digital process. And they say that various regards in which big data are qualitatively different from the kind of data the social scientists we have become used to. The first one is the type of data is different in other regards as the ones underlying in this definition of 3V. The data infrastructures which generate and precede big data are built out of technical platforms and devices implemented by private enterprises and used by these companies for their technological and commercial purposes. So here, I think we all know there are a lot of companies which collect the, which have their own tools to collect and store the data on the users, like Facebook, Apple, and so on and so forth. And this is about it. And the data we see in these cases are much more fine-grained than, for example, survey data, which is still the most commonly used sort of data in academic social research. Also, these data are gathered mainly without individuals being aware of it. And in contrast to survey data, this tracks individual behavior instead of opinions, values, or attitudes. That's, again, we get used to doing sociology. Then the second characteristics is that these new types of data are utilized in new forms and linked to new sets of political and economic interests. So as they say, that data itself nowadays count as an economic resource. And these enterprises, which we mentioned, they have this data, and so this is a kind of their resource. And the third characteristic is that the access to big data generating sources, including their costs and their ownership. So in contrast to engineering sciences in natural sciences with their manifold opportunities to collaborate with big private companies, there are only few possibilities for academic social researcher to have the research infrastructure financed by enterprises. And to access this kind of data in social research, we have quite limited types of types of access to this data, like web scraping and text mining, or using API to collect the data. However, we of course understand that we are not collecting the whole set of data that these enterprises have, but only something like only some level of this data. And they say that social research lacks control over data formats and over biasing influences and other error sources in data production. So this is more a methodological characteristic. So they say that big data is mostly generated automatically by technical and commercial processes in physical environments and in social worlds. And social researchers do not play the role of designers of instruments for data collection, and they only partly have control over research designs. Of course. And the process of operationalizing construct dimensions into variables is not in the hands of social researchers, as in classical surveys, but is operated by engineers, computer scientists, data scientists, and other professionals involved into the practice of the implementing hardware and programs. And also it influences on data formats and information in the data. So we have some problems with like ad hoc decisions about categorization, unknown principles of data transformation, loss of metadata, as I said. Yes, like we can collect only like one level of data. Missing knowledge about situational conditions of measurement, involved filtering processes, problems of storage, and adequate data flows. So there are a lot of problems that social researchers face with working with this kind of data. And this implies that seen from the view of social researchers who do not control the statistical chain, definitely the coherence of data and the meaning of data are questionable. And we have the erosion of the validity of conclusions based on such data. And big data producing companies which can control the data infrastructure and the statistical chain are gaining power over knowledge production. So this is the huge result of this situation. Then there are several more characteristics, and one of them, number 5, is that some established approaches and concepts of social research are not applicable to the majority of big data analysis, including usual statistical parameters being not calculable. For example, the notions from sampling theory like representatives, target population, standard error, and etc. And another characteristic is that the development of data analytics towards real-time analysis run by algorithms which are based on machine learning and artificial intelligence. For social research, this trend enforces the questioning of traditional methodological practices such as exploration, interpretation, and understanding. If the exploration of patterns and structures can be done by algorithms, if the development of hypotheses and assumptions in research can be done by computers, and if interpretation and understanding have become outdated, then social research is not only in danger of becoming privatized, but it is in danger of becoming altogether obsolete. So this is the huge problem for us. People who are working with, who are doing actually social science research. And then after this, how to say, frightening conclusion in the previous part, they say in the next part, they discuss what is at stake, like why we should care about new data worlds. So they say that this whole transformation brings to the emergence of big data that has been repeatedly linked to diagnosis of an upcoming crisis of empirical social research and its established methodologies. And we have questions regarding the authority of interpreting social phenomena. And as we also discussed briefly in the beginning, so these authors, like who now can discuss some and who can interpret social phenomena using this big data, these authors seldom have a background in the social sciences and can be unaware of conceptual and methodological foundations that have been built over the past 2 centuries in sociology. And conventions are foundational for the programming of algorithms if the results are meant to correspond to a common good and to deliver information relevant for collective action. And from the perspective of EC, from which the authors are looking at this problem, the measurement and the datification need to be based on conventions on which social groups, social movement, and representatives of social institutions have agreed. And they say that neither are the algorithmic procedures transparent, nor is there any form of public negotiation on the conventions that structure the framing of the categories, classifications, and etc. involved. So we have this methodological problem, but at the same time, this is a political issue. And that's why we come up to the next part, like what kind of challenges does social research actually face? So definitely we observed that there are changes which big data brings. And for social science and social science methodology, it really makes some challenges. And now they propose us to see what kind of challenges we really face. And they say that So these are big data challenges established forms of doing social research, and these challenges especially pronounced in relation to the canonic form of quantitative social research that dominated most of the 20th century in the sociology. And they say that there is a preferred set of methods or of epistemic values and orientations, and typical institutional forms and political economic contexts. And new data worlds, which we have, put this dominant canon in question in many of these regards. So what exactly do we face? So they start that saying that hypothetic deductive method, which also referred as the scientific method from the 1920s, is under question. So it was used in social sciences for the whole century, and it's linked as an underlying principle ontological understandings to methodological perspectives and concrete research techniques. For example, we can explain the rise and relevance of the usage of regression as the main form of statistical analysis with the specific understanding of causality. So it's not only like we use some methodology and some research techniques because of some ontological understanding, some ideas about ontology. And so in this hypothetic deductive method, general understanding yielded concrete forms and procedures for doing social research. For example, they also make the examples of null hypothesis significance testing and total survey error, which mirror specific research logics and favor specific empirical procedures. And under the surface of concrete guidelines, they breach ontological presuppositions and methodological strategies. But apart from these classical epistemological issues, they also reflect particular epistemic values and political economic context. So they say that usage of this method in general so it was able to answer to this preference for neutrality, transparency, and communicability of procedures and findings in times of political polarization or predilection for parsimony and elegance, paralleling the supposed ideal of the natural sciences. So yes, I'm sorry for not a correct reading, but the idea is that this method and the whole understanding that it implied, so it was able to to answer to the need for these methods to be neutral, transparent, and communicative. And also it was done in parallel with the natural sciences, where there are some strict methods. So also in social sciences, we have some strict methods according to which we can study the social phenomena. And also, it's interesting that they say that different models of how quantification and statistics are linked, there are different models how quantification and statistics are linked to different forms of governance. So each type of government implied a special type of people to be quantified. I mean, not people to be quantified, but each actually all the actors how they can be counted and how they can quantify their lives into numbers, and to provide some statistics. Then they say that methodologically inductive strategies, data-driven analysis and prediction are set against deductive thinking, model-driven approaches and explanation. Epistemic values such as transparency and parsimony are replaced by an orientation towards complexity and the tolerance for or even appreciation of opacity as long as the algorithm works. And the main institutional context of methodological innovation and competence has moved from academic social sciences to the private business world. Ownership of data and accountability for defining and doing research have moved from the public sector and so on. So quite a huge shift. And after this kind of, again, conclusion of like where this, what challenges do we have with this big data, and which we understand as the in such a wide form, they go to conclusion and they say about contours of and starting points for sociology of social research and data quality in times of big data. And the whole idea is to move from, as they say, theoretical prediction and affirmative algorithms to exploratory research and reflexive methodologies in the analysis of big data. And there are 5 starting points for this. And the first one is that question of methodological strategies, such as exploratory data analysis, including visualizing, linking big data analysis to established social research data formats, such as survey data, combining qualitative digital research methods with statistical tools. So this is the first path to move. This is the first starting point, which can be done to come to this sociology of social research. Then the second is about questions of grounding research questions in the pursuit of collective goals and the enabling or of achieving a common good with databases and forms of data analysis that are coherent with the collective intentionality. And then the third point is the need for theory in research and teaching is a core issue. Need for theory, because this usage of algorithms is theoretical. And then the fourth point is the importance of elaborating specific forms of designs and methodological strategies. And they provide example of symphonic social sciences, which is the new mode for working with heterogeneous data. And in the article, there is a citation of a reference of the authors of this approach. And then the fifth point is that the consequences for sociology of social research would be to understand and to evaluate big data, its quality and its production. One has to replace the established epistemological models. So we have to replace the models, epistemological models that we use. And this will imply that big data, so, I mean, on this slide, this is the something that goes from this fifth point. So that big data is linked to data infrastructures, which are in most cases not built up and are not controlled by social researchers. And the quality assessment of big data calls for a new sociology of this new form of social research. This sociology of social research would not be restricted to academic researchers, research institutions, or the science system, but instead include all the statistical chains, situations, intermediaries, and conventions that are connected in the production of big data. for its formatting, filtering, distribution, storing, aggregating, analyzing, and etc. It would not only focus on the situational practices and its coherences, but also tensions and contradictions all along the chain, on the entangled values and common goods to which collective intentionally is oriented. This sociology of social research would track the practices which bring in meaning, interpretation, and value to big data as a new kind of social resource, and would study the effect of big data production, but also its effects on society. Big data is proceeding in society, but step by step, revealing, representing, analyzing, structuring, and proceeding society. Sociology of social research would be a critical, pragmatist, and reflexive methodology of distributed knowledge production in a digital society. So this is the main idea, the main посыл of the authors, and the main ideas about this sociology of social research. And actually, this is the end of the article. And I see that there are 2 people less that in the beginning. So sorry for, I mean, if this format is a little bit more difficult and requires some more attention. But so this is the end of the article, and now this is exactly the time to discuss it. And probably someone has some ideas or questions or something like which would like to say, or something which you liked about the article, or you didn't like, something that you agree or disagree, something like this. So please come.
Okay, thank you, Dasha. Thank you for a very detailed abstract of an article. I want to say that originally I thought that the authors would talk more about these boundaries between the study of social scientists who used big data analysis, and for instance, people from computer science who doing also some study with the big data. But those articles still is very interesting. And also a point which I followed, but I haven't seen it written like properly, which also like written in almost every article about the big data, that is that the object or subject of the study in social sciences, as it was written, like we study some opinions from the surveys, what people think, what people would do, but we have no idea what people actually do, and what deals the subject of those big data studies. They deal with the actual with some actions and exact facts, social facts about what people actually do, not what they believe, but what they really do. And probably because of this difference between these spheres, between these styles of studies, like as far as I got, big data studies, mostly those studies which are driven, like data-driven studies. In social sciences, we actually followed, we have studies which are followed some research problems. We have some research questions. But here, those research questions, they somehow somehow followed those those details in the data which they got. And also, this is a very huge problem that those social scientists who are working with those data, they cannot be sure how those data were collected. They even have wouldn't have any information about it. And also, yes, the thing with which I agree with the authors is that it is important to have this optical as conventions and coordinations, and we should understand the context of those of the exact data set, data collection, because sometimes we have we use some data, but we have no idea what was the reasons to have this data in some corporate and in some corporate, and what exactly was the issues with that. But maybe some ideas from this article I also noted from the book which I read maybe a few years ago. Maybe you know it, about like Everybody Lies, about big data, and it was written by Seth Stevens-Davidovich, and this author, he is a data science specialist, and he had very I can share the link to the chat. And he had very strong ideas, like we don't need any sociologists, and the science also is not very important nowadays because we have our great data scientists. But I'm not sure that all his ideas are correct. but yeah, some of the points were also heard in this article.
Thank you, Aruna. Yeah, actually, I would say that this is a question that I was thinking a lot when, I mean, I mentioned in the beginning about the situation in network research that there are kind of two groups of people doing networks, and one of them is like social scientists who are there for, I don't know, 50 years or even more. And there is a new group of people who just fancy came like last 15, 20 years. They came in and they just managed to answer a lot of questions on from the sphere of social science. Of course, for the social scientists, it looks quite like somebody is coming. So it was called in network analysis as an invasion of physicists. So some invaders are coming. And I was thinking about this situation in general, so not only network science, and really there are some people, some researchers who are more, who like can operate better with these tools and data analysis and etc. However, they do not really have this knowledge of social phenomenon and theories and concepts and so on. But they can say, of course, that they don't need them, but this is how our science is constructed, so that we need a basement, we need a theory, and then from the theory we are going to some concepts, and then we are going to empirical data or back. I mean, these theoretical parts usually should be there. And now I see that, and also there was a great example of joint Sunbelt conference when two groups of researchers came back together, and it looks like they are trying to see the benefits of each other, to take account the benefits of each other. So one can count and another one group can make this quantification and another can make this methodological and theoretical explanations and interpretation. And this actually joining of these two groups can be something like the result of this article, that there would be this social research, which will be I mean, there would be a convention between different actors in this statistical chain, but actually, it's so hard to think. I mean, to believe in it, because there is something like theoretical, a kind of a nice idea, and how it can be done in practice. So then again, you think about your own data that you are trying to get from some enterprise. And then, of course, there are some contexts and some problems with this data, and you do not know something about it. So, I mean, this idea is great, I think, because I actually, personally, I always like to merge something, to collaborate something, that different groups will join and will do something together. But if you look at this from a kind of realistic point of view, it's really hard to think about it for me. I don't know.
Yeah, probably because the thing is that we have like both each of these groups, like social scientists and physicists, have different ideas of what is the scientific study. For the first group, it is the study which is followed by very concrete research problem, and they are completely sure that there is some lack of knowledge in exactly this point of view. Maybe for other group, it's not always like this. Sometimes you also can see some studies which were started and continues only because of some interesting data and some ideas that we can use this data, and with this exact data we can do some study, not study, we can do some technique, statistical analysis, some to check some algorithm or something like this. This is maybe like another position, and it's not the position of social scientists, I think.
Okay, let's the floor let's give the floor to someone else. Please, Ilya, Ivan, Denis, Hamida, Margarita, if you have something to say.
Okay, if I may, because I come from a different lab, but I was really interested in the topic for obvious reasons. I'd like to share first some experience related to the issue, and then maybe to build upon it. A couple of months ago, I reviewed a paper for a journal with a very high impact factor, let's name it. It's a sort of cross-disciplinary journal in social sciences, and the authors try to apply a machine learning algorithm to a large body of textual data. What struck me is that, first, the hypothesis was really simplistic, and in fact, they were they were bound to find some more confirmation of their beliefs. So they are trying to test this fairly simple hypothesis. Well, something along the lines that, well, media are somehow biased and they favor one view on some issue more than other. Or so far so good. And second, strangely enough, they did not use machine learning to uncover some new relations in the data, some new patterns or whatnot. They just used machine learning to save lots of time. So basically, well, a human being could have, many human beings could have done the same given much more time, and probably with the same accuracy. So basically my worries is not that the new technology and the new algorithms are going to make us redundant and or are going to make the social sciences, as many of them, obsolete. It's exactly the other way around. That we may not have enough for these new algorithms or in here that basically we are not going to have enough for new things instead of doing all things the new way. And speaking about theory, I say yes, first, it's not just about making sense of the results, it's primarily asking the right questions. The interesting question, something that, well, non-data scientists, data scientists who are not social scientists cannot do, obviously. And also it's it's about theory. I'm not, I'm empiricist myself, but my friends in theoretical sociology see that they haven't seen major theoretical breakthroughs since Bourdieu. So I wonder if we can have some theoretical insights eventually from all these change that may or may not happen.
Oh, thank you very much for this great comment. Thank you, Margarita. Denis, you wanted to say something? No?
Daria, thank you so much for invitation and great presentation. I would like to say that I'm, you can hear me, yes?
Yeah, great.
That I'm maybe even the representative from the other group who just use this data analysis like tools and without great theoretical background. Thank you for much. It was really useful for me at once. But on the other hand, I just have taken some points which were important for me. First of all, I thought that the topic became agenda because of many user experience surveys which we have now in science, but also in promotion, and so this influence it shadows the results of social science at all. I suppose it's really good sociological paper and work at all, where the authors have dedicated to these issues. And I also see I like the framework and the idea which I really took, that this critique based that these databases can be controlled. It was really new for me. I suppose previous data scientists have based on official statistics, and it was fine. Everybody believes in it. And now on this, by the development of these databases, by social Facebook and so on networks, I suppose it's and really the enterprises can influence it. First of all, I was wondering about the term economist of conventions. I thought, why economist of conventions? Okay, I understand it as a set of rules and principles, but at the end, I understand that it can be influenced by politicians, or don't economy also, like in these private databases. And yeah, this I suppose this main one of main questions by network analysis to ask, are you more representative from social sciences or from computer and
network science?
yeah, networks. That's really fine. I suppose we have recently faced this idea. We just take a statistic from Soviet time to describe some educational systems and the recent data, and we cannot compare it because it was a rather different context. And the question of interpretations, what you have raised, and this change from data mining, cleaning, and interpreting. It's no, I really like this whole framework framework which influence even the quality of results. Well, maybe not. It's just my impression to the topic, because it's a bit not belongs to my scientific field. But first of all, thank you for the idea in the initiative itself, and the topic. I suppose it's really in this has its value even in the methodological context. Thank you.
Thank you, Denis. I think actually it's really so important sometimes to go a little bit up from our studies that we are doing. We are working with data, and so this is some empirical, empirical data and some statistical analysis. And sometimes just to go a little bit further and to think how this whole can be set up in some special place in the whole chain and the whole process of this data collection, analysis, and then interpretation and presentation. And this is very much as let's say, like Latour was telling about this actor network theory and actor network, the network which is connected of actors. And so that when we know that there are different actors on the way from me to exactly to the person who will get some knowledge from this data, so that's really nice to think about it, I think. And also I actually like the idea of Margarita, that actually we as scientists and as social scientists, we also take some advantages of this tools and neural networks and something like this, which helps us to save time. So it's not about kind of analysis, but also we use it just in sense of our work. I think this idea didn't appear in this article, so it's not only the usage just to explain something, but it can be really such a usage of these tools just to help yourself to work with your data. So, which is pretty okay, and yeah, it doesn't create any questions. Looks like. So yeah, I think it's important from time to time just to think about such huge processes of data analysis. And even these economical reasons and political reasons, and some people who control the data, some enterprises that control the data. So that's really makes you probably think a little bit differently about all these things. Okay, so if do we have any other comments? We still have 5 minutes before the end of our seminar. If not, so then I think we can finish. Right, thank you very much, dear colleagues. There are 6 of us left. Yeah, but it's okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So everyone, everyone who is not from our lab, you are welcome to other events of the lab. We usually have the announcements of our website on our website. So please feel free to come in to listen to the presentation or to present. We are also will be here. We will be happy to hear to listen to your presentations. I'm sorry. Okay, so Aruna, I think you can finish the recording.
Okay.